Hey, this is Jackson from the future here. Just a quick note before we get into today's episode. For whatever reason, my microphone isn't as good today. This is my fifth take of the episode. Typically, making these episodes, I only really do one take, and the microphone quality is pretty decent, but for whatever reason today, it just wasn't. So I've tried, and this is the best I could get it. I'm really sorry. Obviously, you might notice a bit of a drop off. I hope that it isn't too much of an inconvenience for you, and I hope that you're able to push through this little annoyance. And once I return to the podcast in a few weeks after Matt's takeover, I will hope that it will all be fixed. And yeah, now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's get into the episode itself. Welcome back to the Powered by Football podcast, your favourite Power G football podcast, hosted by Jackson Taylor. We've got a very exciting episode on for you today. We have got a Sydney derby in Sydney FC versus the Western Sydney Wanderers. And we have also got the Newcastle Jets versus Football St George. We've got an interview with Hills United's Matt Mallows. We discuss him taking over the Powered by Football podcast for a few weeks, as I will be off representing the Western Sydney Wanderers in Paris for the inaugural Fit for Club World Cup. So stay tuned for both that interview and more content covering that competition. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. The opening match of the day saw Sydney FC versus a weakened Western Sydney Wanderers side in the championship, both due to player shortages and myself, Jackson Taylor, being locked out due to the rules regarding players playing in both the championship and the premiership. I had exceeded the minimum amount of games played in the premiership, which was 8 games. I had exceeded that. So that meant that I was no longer allowed to play in the championship. This meant that we were down to 3. It was Rameth Harith, Jay Meta, and Levi Carrero on their own against first in the league, Sydney FC. And they had some bad momentum at the start of the game. Sydney FC scoring off an own goal off the Wanderers. Just an unfortunate bounce off the defence just to make it 1-0 early on within 30 seconds, a minute or so. Not long after that, George de Jong was able to double Sydney FC's lead with a nice goal. Harry Simmons assisting that one. Harry would get his own goal from a George de Jong assist. Those two working really, really well together to make it 3-0 just before the break, just setting a really, really impactful tone on the match. Riley Brown would finally get his goal for this game, as he always does. That's his 24th of the season so far, to make it 4-0 for Sydney FC. Harry Simmons would score another goal in this game, this time assisted by the top goal scorer Riley Brown, making it 5-0. Riley's brother Tarek would then contribute to the match, his goal making it 6-0, a crafty flick from a sideline. And then to cap it all off, a penalty was given away by the Wanderers defence, which led to Cody Town, the goalkeeper of Sydney FC, slotting a really nice goal home. It's actually a really decent pen, to be fair, to make it 7-0 to Sydney FC over their crosstown rivals. In the Premiership, it was a much more contentious game. It was a lot closer between the two sides, a very even first half, while Sydney FC were the ones prying the Wanderers defence more than the other way around. The Wanderers defence of myself and Andy Waite holding on quite well. The score at half-time being 0-0. Throughout the rest of the game, it was a very even game. It was a bit of the same story of Wanderers just holding on quite defensively, and the only real action to note throughout the rest of the game was a 2-on-1, which was given away with about 30 seconds left to play from the Wanderers defence. This resultant free kick saw Josh Ryan set Chris Suffield up really, really well, sneaking the ball behind the Wanderers goalkeeper, Jackson Taylor, to make it 1-0 on the full-time whistle. So a really, really impactful win for Sydney FC against the Wanderers. Onto the afternoon games now, and the Newcastle Jets played Football St George in the championship. Football St George pressed throughout the entire first half. They had some good pressing there, but it really didn't amount to much. They just weren't able to make it turn into any goals, just despite their chances and pressure. So the halftime score was 0-0 between the two sides. Newcastle had some good chances in the opening minutes, but it wasn't able to be converted. St George, a minute or so later, had a high sideline that went right across the face of goal and didn't really get converted by any of their players. A free kick for Football St George was put straight in the net between the two defenders of Newcastle, but it didn't touch anyone, therefore it didn't count. A free kick in a very similar position minutes later sees Finn O'Donovan set Ruby McLean up, and she just touches it to get it over the line. It was a touch very close to the line, so very well done there by her to get the go-ahead goal for Football St George, and that would be the final score. 1-0 to St George over the Newcastle Jets. A incredible defensive display for Newcastle, holding off about 34 minutes or so, which is a pretty good tally for them. They've grown so much this season. It's been really impressive to see. Into the premiership game between the two sides, Newcastle Jets and Football St George. And in the opening minutes, Newcastle had some strong pressure, some good passing, etc. And that was displayed especially when Chris Haster set Dimitri Leolio-Davis up well, sending the Jets 1-0 up. A corner for St George minutes later was cleared, just unable to get an equalising goal. And that would really be the only notable pieces of action throughout the entirety of the first half, the halftime score being 1-0 to the Jets. A strong counter for St George minutes into the second half sees Mitch Albert miss an open goal. It was a bit of an awkward angle, so it's not entirely a embarrassment for him, but had he spun the other way, I reckon he might have been able to sneak it in to get an equaliser for his side, but alas, a strong shot from Chris Astis was saved well on the line by the St George defence to keep them from doubling their lead. Again, really well done to keep St George in the game. Newcastle had a good set of passes towards the end of the game, but Astis put the ball on the wrong side of the post just to keep the game at 1-0, and that score would be the one that remained. It was 1-0 at full time, Newcastle defeating Football St George. Over to the championship table and statistics. Sydney FC lead that. They have 10 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. They have 31 points. Hills United sits second. They have 8 wins, 2 draws and 2 losses. They have 26 points. Football St George sit third. They have 6 wins, 2 draws and 5 losses. They have 20 points. The Western Sydney Wanderers sit fourth. They have 4 wins, 3 draws and 7 losses. They have 15 points. And the Newcastle Jets sit fifth. They have 0 wins, 0 draws and 13 losses on 0 points. To the goal scorers chart now, and Riley Brown leads that. He has 24 for Sydney FC. Lachie Ninham of Hills United sits second. He has 10 for Hills. And Sydney FC's George Tiong sits in third with 9. George leads the assist chart. He has 13 for Sydney FC. Football St George's Finn O'Donovan and Sydney FC's Harry Simmons are tied for second. They both have 8. And Sydney FC's Riley Brown sits in third with 5. To the clean sheets chart, Cody Town of Sydney FC leads that. He has 8. Bailey Pete of Hills United sits in second. She has 4. And Football St George's Ollie McPhail sits in third. He has 3. To the premiership table and statistics now. The Newcastle Jets lead. They have 11 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. They have 34 points. Sydney FC sits second. They have 7 wins, 2 draws and 3 losses. They have 23 points. Football St George sit third. They have 5 wins, 4 draws and 4 losses. They have 19 points. The Western Sydney Wanderers sit fourth. They have 2 wins, 3 draws and 9 losses. They have 9 points. And Hills United sit fifth. They have 1 win, 2 draws and 9 losses on 5 points. To the statistics, the goal scorers first. Dimitri Leolio-Davis leads that after his winning goal against Football St George. He has 12. Football St George's Abdullah Karim sits second. He has 11. And a 2-way tie for third between Newcastle Jets' Chris Hastis and Sydney FC's Daniel O'Brien, both with 8. To the assist chart, and Football St George's Abdullah Karim leads that. He has 8. A 2-way tie for second between the Newcastle Jets' Dimitri Leolio-Davis and Ryan Seck. They both have 7, and a two-way tie for third between Sydney FC's Fletcher Ball and Joshua Ryan, both on 6. Lastly, to the clean sheets, Newcastle Jets' Ryan Seck leads that. He has 11. In second place is Cody Town of Sydney FC. He has 2. And a four-way tie for third between Hills United's Matt Mallows, the Western Sydney Wanderers' Andy Waite, and Sydney FC's Joshua Ryan and Harry Simmons, all on 1. That almost brings us to the end of today's episode. However, we do still have that aforementioned interview with Hills United's Matt Mallows to discuss him taking over the podcast for a few weeks while I am over in Europe playing soccer for the Western Sydney Wanderers at the Club World Cup. So without further ado, we'll get into that.
Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Mallows and I currently play for Hills United and I am 23 years old.
Almost forgot that one, I love that. So,
I don't like feeling old.
So unlike most interviews where I bring someone on due to a performance in a match, you haven't really done anything today.
No, I've been taking notes for you, I've been slaving away.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Now, the reason that I brought you on today, Matt, is to sort of reintroduce you. I know the audience have heard your voice a little bit, taking over for me every now and then. But I'm going to France to play soccer for a little bit.
You are going to France.
France.
It's going to be a very fun time.
Yeah, so I'm going over there to play at the Club World Cup for a little while. So Matt will be taking over for, I believe it's 3 episodes.
I believe it does round out to be roughly 3 episodes, yes.
Yes, so I just sort of wanted to have a quick interview, get you to talk about your experience with doing the podcast so far. I think you've done 3 episodes or so far.
Yeah, occasionally Jax lets me out of the basement. It's just like...
And what have you thought of doing the podcast so far?
It's a lot of fun, helping you out and doing all that kind of stuff and just filling in when I need to.
Yeah.
It's good to get the sport out there. So.
Yeah, nice. And I know I was teaching you recently how to do all the technical side of uploading and stuff. How
It wasn't as hard as you made it out to be.
Thanks.
Whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll find out. I'm probably going to stuff it up.
If the episodes are out in the next 3 weeks, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you enjoy most about it? Like, because obviously you said just getting the sport out there, but like, do you prefer the editing side, the recording side? Like what?
Well, the notes is quite fun to do when teams aren't doing too much. Notes are easy when the games are not necessarily boring, but when there's not a lot going on. Like with really tight games are really fun to take notes for.
Yeah.
Because it's also just fun to sit there and watch.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you get to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
To actually just sit down and just enjoy watching a game of football.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, the reason that you've been sort of the one stepping in a lot as the number 2 is your experience with commentary and stuff.
Yes.
With the sport. How do you think that that's helped you do this?
It helps me not make mistakes, basically. Because a lot of, with commentary, one of the big things is pronouncing names correctly and that kind of thing. So you get very good at making very few mistakes.
Right.
Which is something that helps really well when you're recording yourself, because going back, getting towards the end of a 15-minute recording and then you stuff someone's name up, and you have to do the whole thing again. Is not great.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously editing and stuff, but I think you might have a different method to how I do it. So obviously that's alleviated. Over this next 3 weeks, what can listeners of the Power by Football podcast expect? Anything different?
Nothing really different. Well, the only thing I will try and do is get an interview with you at some point to see how Paris is going.
Yeah.
I don't know how time zones are going to work. I think you're 9 hours ahead.
Nine hours or something like that. That sounds about right.
So I might be staying up late. Not that I don't do that already.
Yeah.
But hopefully you'll have some good news for us.
Yeah. Hopefully we've got a goal.
So. A goal. I love the optimism and enthusiasm.
Yeah. Oh no, we're going to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be a really good week, and we're going to. I'll try and get an episode dedicated to Paris done once we return. Get a lot of the Wanderers guys on to talk about it.
That sounds good.
But in the interim, you will be taking over. So good luck.
Thank you. I will also speak to Dimitri. I'm going to try and get your games clipped out and posted up somewhere
Oh,
as
a
well.
little tease.
So look out for those. Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything you'd like to say before you wrap up?
Yeah, try not to miss Jax too much. I think he's worried I'm going to take his job.
Downloads have gone down, and no one's listening to the podcast.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's not that I haven't filled in before, but
Yeah, just a longer service.
bit of a longer stint.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, be good to do something other than record notes for once.
Yeah. All right.
You can get involved in power chair football here in New South Wales as an athlete, coach, referee, or volunteer by visiting the New South Wales Power Chair Football Association website, linked in the show notes. Our season takes place in Glenwood at the Valentine Sports Park from the 15th of February 2025 to the 12th of July 2025 every Saturday. Contact info@nswpfa.org.au for more information. Just a quick note that the views of this podcast are mine and mine alone. The opinions and thoughts expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the NSWPFA. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can follow us at Powered by Football Pod on Instagram, join our Facebook group, Powered by Football Podcast, or follow our Twitter account, Powered by Pod. Thanks for listening.